Everyone, Steve Westman, welcome to another Audiophiles Roundtable discussion. It's a good one today. Got a special guest, Geoff Edgers from the Washington Post, and of course our normal panel of Nathan Goss, Tim from University of Vinyl, and Mazzy. It's a great one today. Stay tuned for that. And of course, I'm at the Hi-Fi Center. If you need some of this stuff, check out our website or come downtown Vancouver, 433 Carroll. Awesome stuff here. And let's get to it. Our roundtable discussion on the other side of the Audiophiles. Hello, everyone. Steve Westman from the Audiophiles. We have our weekly Mobile Fidelity, Analogue Productions, Audiophile Vinyl Roundtable. I have my crew with me. Nathan Goss, prolific writer for the different forums. How you doing, Nathan?
Good. How are you guys?
Very good. I got Norman, Mazzy, Maslov. Needs no introduction. Tim from the University of Vinyl. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. Thank you.
Very good. And then we have a special guest today, Geoff Edgers from the Washington Post. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, Steve. I watched all the time. So
well, thank you. I'm glad you enjoy it. I know today we're going to talk a little bit about your latest article. I have it up here if anyone can see it. It was posted on the Washington Post website February 10th. Burt Bacharach perfected a musical style, nothing easy about it. And great read, by the way. So we'll get into that a little bit, dive deeper into Burt's career. I'm really excited to hear your point of view. Geoff, is of course you've done a lot of research over the years and know a lot about the different artists out there. And I did take your advice. I did listen to Walk Little Dolly, by the way.
It's a good record, right? It's a good
oh
one.
Wow, very nice. And yes, definitely not just easy listening that one. There's a lot going on in that song.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that as well. But I first wanted to talk a little bit about today's March the 1st. So if you're a big Pink Floyd fan, okay. Dark Side of the Moon 50th anniversary today, 50 years old today, same vintage as myself. Any thoughts on it? You guys are you going to listen to it today? What are you guys going to do?
Is the $300 box set still available?
I'm not buying it.
I was too young for Pink Floyd, really. And what happened is I used to watch in my friend John Christ's basement, we would watch The Wall over and over.
Oh yeah.
His mother would yell at us from upstairs. And I just liked when he shaved his eyebrows. But I never really liked Pink Floyd until I liked Robin Hitchcock. And then I liked Syd Barrett. And then I started listening to Pink Floyd. It's a little bit like the Grateful Dead. I just like that people were so religiously into them and I hadn't grown up with it. So now I'm an appreciator.
So you'll listen to The Dark Side of the Moon tonight, Geoff?
Well, I don't know about that.
Okay.
I plan on listening to this new Jeff Beck record I got, but maybe I'll try to think about it.
Mazzy, how about you?
I'm not going to listen to that. I do like the record. It came out it was one of the first records that came out when my first record store job in 73. And so, of course, I've heard it so much. I feel fortunate because I saw Pink Floyd at Winterland towards the end of 1972. And they performed the entire Dark Side of the Moon. Of course, it's easy for me to say, oh, wow, that was so cool. We didn't know what it was. They did echoes, and it was a preview of 5 months later, this album, 4 months later would come out. So I love that. But I'm all in on metal. That's my period. I love Dark Side, but metal.
Yeah, well, and metal was actually a real preface to the Dark Side of the Moon. They were really experimenting to get to that phase of
Dark
Side of the Moon.
The one I love is Obscured by Clouds, a soundtrack to La Vallée, that French film, which just leads right up to it. It's a soundtrack, but it's an amazing soundtrack.
Yeah, Nathan, yourself, you're not a Floyd fan, are you? From my conversations with you.
Oh, it's not that. It's to me, the Dark Side of the Moon doesn't make my top 5 Pink Floyd albums. I even like the Division Bell from a replay value better than Dark Side of the Moon. So, but I'm not hating on it. I'm just saying, like, it's not something I really actively seek out to listen to, very often. So
I think commercially, obviously, Dark Side's done so well, but I think there are, I like Wish You Were There. I think that's an incredible album. Geoff already mentioned The Wall. I mean, I don't know, Geoff, your vintage, but I definitely listened to The Wall more when I was younger than I did Dark Side of the Moon. just because I think it was just more of my ear. It came out in 1980. So I mean, a little bit, almost 10 years later. So yeah, I definitely listen to The Wall more and have more memories of listening to The Wall than I do Dark Side of the Moon.
Right.
But I did want to say this. I mean, we know the iconic album cover. It was actually an idea off of a 1963 physics book called Light and it's called The How and Why of Light and Color. And I have a little shot here. That's where they got the idea for the prism and the whole thing on the front of the album. What do you got there? And there's Wish You Were There. Yeah.
Well, this is the entire hypnosis book. And if you're an art person, this has everything that Storm Thurgeson and Aubrey Powell did for hypnosis.
Do they have this picture in that book by chance?
You know, while you're talking, I'll look. I don't want to waste your time. I don't recall.
That's right. There was an article today that came out, and they were basically saying that's the book they got. But yeah, so they somehow.
It doesn't have in this particular one. I mean, this has, everything from Pink Floyd to McCartney to 10cc to UFO to Hawkwind, everything else. But a fantastic volume there.
Oh, nice.
But that's really when album art really was a more concentrated effort to really put something of product out there. Because if you think about a lot of the albums that were released prior to that, I mean, they're lame group photos with like track listings on the front cover, I mean, to me, it's one of the first really great albums from an artistic, pursuit.
Well, you're absolutely right. Think about all the album covers out there with these skinny little anorexic men, right? So, all in line, 3 or 4 or 5 of them, and they're just sitting there like this without smiles.
I'd say, Satan is Dead probably works for me. And then also, what's funny is I think that the only Bad Company record that Hypnosis didn't do was the Running with the Pack, I think. And God, that's horrible. It's just a dog and a bunch of little dogs. Like, who thought of that? I guess they saved some cash, but
I feel to me, Revolver and Sgt. Pepper are the pinnacle, and Rubber Soul, remember, was theoretically the first cover that didn't list the name of the artist on the cover.
That's right.
It didn't say the Beatles. So.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Tim, how about you? Like, are you a big Floyd fan at all? Like, do you listen to them?
My go-to copy, I've got the 30th anniversary. I think Kevin Gray and Doug Sachs were involved in that. Yeah. I love that copy. I was in a fraternity at the University of Michigan in the mid to late 80s, and there was Pink Floyd emanating from various dorm rooms at all times. And I've been a big Floyd fan. I saw the Vision Bell tour, actually, I think at Soldier Field in '94. But I like Dark Side and The Wall, of course, as well, and Metal. But yeah, I don't pull it out very often, but I'm a Floyd fan, but I'm not looking to make any more Floyd purchases, really, per se.
So no one's buying the box, I guess, that's out or coming out right away. I think it's coming out the 17th of March, somewhere around there. I will say I did put a pre-order in for the live, the Wembley concert vinyl. It's first time on vinyl. I think, Mazzy, we talked about that last time.
Yeah, I'm not ordering it, but yeah.
I ordered it. It's $40. I thought I'll do it. Whatever. I probably won't even listen to it.
I'll never listen to it. If I want to listen to it, I'll listen to the regular record. That's how I look at it.
I get worried too that we buy so many records that at some point we're not going to listen to most of them. That scares me a bit.
Yeah.
What do you do? Do you wean them out? Do you sell them? Like, I don't know. What do you do? Like it's all that FOMO thing. I mean, we'll get into that right now. I mean, Geoff, you were saying you got your Exodus from Analogue Productions. Have you listened to it yet?
I did listen to it. Yeah. I've been interested because I went to see, I was doing a story a few weeks ago and I was in England and I went to see the Marley show, which was not really good, but the music was awesome and the people performing it were great. It's just, they're trying to cram his entire life into like a musical, and it's just, like it would get dark and a doctor would go like, I think you have cancer. Shh. And then they would show like another scene. Just do it too much. Like, make it into a section. But I got really into it, and then I started trying to get as many of the UK Marleys as I could, because I could tell I got one and I listened to it compared to my American one, and I was like, God, this sounds a lot better. So, like I'm not in on the Steely Dan situation. I just don't understand it because I like the copies I have. They sound really good to me, and they're not that hard to get. But I was in on this, and I've listened to it. I mean, like, I'm not a record reviewer, so for me to tell you, I don't have a great, like, if you ask me to review like Blood and Chocolate or something, like, I've listened to that 5,000 times since I was 16 years old. I can't really do that with this. So all I can tell you is that it sounded good to me. I just don't, I don't have a definitive answer on it though.
So that leads me to Nathan, because Nathan has posted his review of the latest Exodus album by Analogue Productions on the different, I guess it's the Mobile Fidelity Facebook group, Nathan. And there's an Analogue Productions Facebook group too. I don't know why you don't post it there. We should talk about that later. But your thoughts on the album? You had a lot to say.
Yeah. Well, first off, I will start by saying I was not a fan of the Abbey Road reissues that they did, the half speed for any of the Bob Marley. So those I thought were not very well done. I think this is well done. It's just, to me, at $150, it's not impressive if it sounds good for $150. Like $150, it should sound absolutely good, right? So there's a lot of stuff out there that's $25, $30 that is equally impressive, and that to me is more of like, something to be I guess shouting from the mountaintops or whatever whenever you get something like that. So for me, it wasn't that it was bad. It's just, first off, side A, in my opinion, side A is weaker than side B, sonically speaking. The only track on side A that really comes alive is the title track. So that's the last track on side A. To me, sounds better. And then side B sounds, it's cohesive. It's there. I mean, everything's in the right place. It's really crystal clear, really detailed, as we would expect from the UHQR. But to me, I think it probably should have been just either a regular, $40 release, or even if they would have done like a 245 RPM, at 60 or whatever, like they did for like the Doors or something like that. To me, that would have made more sense. I just don't think the material for Bob Marley, I don't think the material itself, the recording itself, and the production itself lends itself well. And it's the same with some of the one steps from Mobile Fidelity. Some of those titles that they're choosing don't lend themselves for a clear, more transparent, or whatever you want to call it, type of a release, because with greater transparency comes more of the flaws, right? More of the issues that you hear there. So that's my biggest gripe, I guess. And
have you heard Westman on Vibration? Have you heard the last one?
No, I didn't. No.
So Nathan, that's interesting. Are you going to look at the Tough Gong Jamaican releases and maybe pick that title up and do another comparison, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always, there's value in doing shootouts, because obviously you can ABC compare things. I also try to just evaluate it just on its own merits, right? Because when I pop it on and I put it up to, my normal listening level, I want to know, like, is this speaking to me on its own merits? Is this speaking to me? Does it have all the dynamics that I'm used to? Does it have the low end? Does it have the high end? And vocals, to me, have to sit out in front of the band. If I'm having any ear fatigue trying to discern vocals in that mix, to me, that's an issue. I don't prefer that. If I'm listening to your lyrics, I want to be able to hear them, right? I want them to be intelligible, but I also like whenever they sit out in front of the band, where they should. And to me, on this, except for side B, I thought on side A, the vocals are a little bit more buried than I prefer. Not by much, just slightly, probably more on the same plane as the band. But for me, I like them to be a little bit more pronounced out in front of the band. So like the Blood, Sweat, and Tears one step is a great example of some of the best vocals in balance with the band from any of the premium releases that I think are out there.
I like the Yes Fragile as well. That is another one that stands out for me.
Do you know Exodus really well? Do you know the album really well before this?
Oh,
Exodus.
Yeah.
Okay. Because sometimes that makes a difference, if you're disappointed one recording to another. Like, I love Rustum on Vibration. Obviously I could do without the box. I want to ship them back to Chad, but he won't let me. But I'm looking forward to hearing this, because I love that one so much, and I don't usually go for these box type single record things. So it's rare for me.
Just so the audience knows, this is Mazzy's second only analog. Is your third? Sorry, you'll be your third Analog Productions.
No,
UHQR.
I have Kind of Blue, which I love.
Oh, you do? Okay.
But I had a crackly version, the 33, not the 45.
Yeah.
I did get the Jimi Hendrix, was it the first one, which I like. I don't think it's worth the 150 or 100, whatever it was. I don't. It's good, but it's almost too good for not a great recording, for a rock and roll recording, personally. So I don't usually go for the boxes. I have no MoFi one steps at all.
It's so interesting, Nathan, what you said about just like hearing it on its own, because I'm not good enough to do that. So like the other day I wanted to hear I like that Rod Stewart record, Every Picture Tells a Story. I haven't really listened to it in a million years, but I popped it on and I had like two copies. I had like the newer one that's like the Mercury with all the buildings on it. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to name stamper numbers or anything, but so I listened to that and I'm like, God, this sounds awesome. And then I just grabbed the red Mercury one and I put that on and it was like, boom, I could hear immediately that it was way better. Now, if I'd not had that other one, I would have been fine with it. And then that's the existential question. It's like, who cares? Like, why am I not fine with that thing? Just like I was fine with my boombox or my transistor radio at some point in a weird way.
If you ever wait till you hear a UK version of that. I got one in my late friend's collection of that Every Picture. Oh my God. And I love the Mercury one, was fine for me all these decades. And I listened to that UK one. If you love that album.
Well, I grew up on, I loved Beckola. That was like my favorite record from Jeff Beck. It was like Plinth, that thing was amazing. And I've had the same copy for a million years. It's very clean. And then some friend said the UK one is just going to blow it away. And I spent like way too much money. It took a billion years for it to get here. And then I listened to it and I'm like, he's completely right. Like I could never, ever put on that American version anymore. And it's just like kind of interesting to me because I liked that for like 51 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, another good example would be like the iRobot that was released as a 33 RPM one step. I was so used to the 245 RPM version that Mobile Fidelity did. It has a ton of low end presence, and that 33 RPM does not have that same low end presence. So as soon as it came on, it felt like a neutered version right off the get-go because bass is a heavy proponent of that album. I mean, it creates all that atmosphere from track one to the final track of that album. It's so critical to have that resonating bass on that album. And that 33 RPM does not have the same bass that the 45 RPM version has.
Oh, wait.
So
question. You said, I'm cutting you off, but I'm not meaning to. Question. But you're talking about you had your brain set on it based on the 45 RPM. What about the old one? What about the original one that you had from before? I don't know. Is it like that 45 or like that 33? I don't know if it matters. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I'm used to hearing the record with more low end than the 33 RPM one step the Mobile Fidelity released. And when it's not there, the energy's gone. Like the energy from that atmospheric bass that's present on previous copies, including digital versions that I've listened to, it's there. And that 33 RPM one step that they released, it's not there. It's not as predominant, and it loses the energy because of it. And to me, it's unlistenable. It's that bad.
Wow.
It's not something I would want to listen to, because if that's not there, and it would be the same with Dark Side of the Moon. Could you imagine Dark Side of the Moon if they reduced the bass by 50%, where you don't have that overwhelming presence of bass in there?
I mean, it's like so interesting because I mean, we just read about this Doors record that came out. And it's like we got one guy who listened to it. I have no reason to believe he's lying, saying it's one of the worst things he's ever heard and an embarrassment and shouldn't even been put on a record. And then we got another guy, and these guys have the same name. I can't even believe it. Another guy.
So we should.
It's amazing, and it's the way it should be heard. So it's
we
like,
should.
What do you do?
So that's the ERCs, the Doors limited. It was 450 limited. I think it was limited to 450 from the Lido tapes. It was an equalized copy tape that ERC used to press it to vinyl. So there has been 2 reviews out there. I'm actually going to be reviewing it as well once I get my copy. I have a viewer sending me his copy to review, and I'm going to be comparing it to my Vinyl Me Please mono cut by Bernie Grundman and my Rhino. I think it's like a 2009 cut that Grundman did as well from the box set. And I really want to hear the differences here. I think that will, I'm excited about it to see what all the hype is about. And I've had a bunch of people already ask me, when are you getting your ERC? I'm like, well, it's not up to me. I have to wait for
a better record in
from the
stereo. That record is better in stereo.
And I read somewhere too, I mean, Analogue Productions, I have Analogue Productions 45 RPM cut that Doug Sachs did. What was that, back in 2014? Which one's that?
I'm sorry, this is like the old one. It's in stereo.
Yeah. The stereo that could have been cut by Bernie Grundman. Grundman could have cut I think he cut the original as well. But anyways,
I have an original mono. I have original stereo, and I have the Analogue Productions stereo, the double 45. The original mono is fun.
Awesome.
I mean, the Doors are amazing, but I've never listened to the Doors and gone, oh gosh, these guys knew how to record.
Well, they didn't. So, think about it.
Riders in the Wind. Riders in the Wind. Yes.
Riders on the Storm.
Riders on the Storm.
Yeah.
I'm confused.
We're on the wind most of the time. Yeah.
I know you guys all have children. I tried to show my daughter that the Oliver Stone movie. I didn't really. I love that movie when it came out, and then I was showing it to her, and it's actually very terrible. Like, to the point of like
that thing didn't age well.
Whoever wrote the script, it's like one of the most
Oliver Stone.
Oliver Stone wrote the
script.
We should get him on and talk about it. I mean, Oliver. No, I liked it in its day. I remember at the theater there was a lot of hype for it, but to this day, I'm not a big fan of that movie any longer.
There's another Michael who's come out with a print review. I haven't read it in its entirety, but of course he's another contrarian view there for Mr. Fremer. So you have to check
what did he like it?
He gave it a 7 out of 10 as far as sound is concerned, but he was all over the Lido tape saying, he talked to Bruce Bodnick, and that's what they used originally as well for the original pressing. So it is what it is.
You know what? I had with Electric Recording Company, I just like, one thing that I found really interesting is when I was doing my sound search for sound story a long time ago. I don't know, it's like months ago now.
September 19th.
So I wrote to the fellow Pete, the bearded man who's in charge of like Electric Recording Company, and I was like, because if you look on those records, they list a mastering engineer. So I was like, who's blah 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 and blah blah blah. I don't remember the names offhand. And it was really interesting. He sent me back a response, and he said, those names are on there, but really those people they just transfer tape because we don't do any equalization. So what I find interesting about that, and this might be obvious to you guys, but it's a weird universe we live in where we have these people like Bernie Grundman and Kevin Gray and Doug Sachs. These guys are like the rock stars of the audiophile world, right? And they do things to the tape. They're supposed to be masters at this thing. And then we're also embracing, or not embracing, I don't know, but we're also embracing these guys who are like, to keep this pure and authentic, we just got to slap on what's on there. Well, sometimes I'm guessing, I could be wrong, what's on there isn't going to sound right in your stereo. And so that's why we bring in these experts. I just found it fascinating because it's like, it feels like a one size fits all that you can't really do. I mean, different genres, different years, different recording qualities. At some point, maybe you need someone to do that stuff, but maybe you don't. I'm not an engineer.
I played that original mono at like a Doors album 2 nights ago on my, nice system. And it was fun. It was good. It wasn't great. But I remember I had a mono as a kid, and it was good for the stereos we had in 1967 when I was 13 years old, a record I got for my bar mitzvah. It sounded great. It popped. It's like you play a 45 that just knocked your socks off. Summer in the City, 11 Spoonful, back in the 60s. You put it on your nice stereo now, it's kind of like, what the fuck? Where did it all go?
Yeah.
Where did all that power go?
So I'm excited to get my copy. So I don't want to be the definitive answer to it, but I really want to hear this ERC and what the fuss is all about. Because I mean, I think they're already going for a heck of a lot on the aftermarket. So if you can get
Yeah.
one. I don't know why anyone would pay $1,000 or whatever it might be going for. I think that's insane. The amount of money these things are going for. I think it's just because it's limited, right? 450. And it's not like Geoff said, I mean, they didn't have a master engineer that did anything. It was just a Lido equalized tape transferred or cut to vinyl. That's it. Using their all valve tube machine, which has 35 watts per channel, which is way less than what Kevin Gray uses on his machine, just so everyone knows.
Yeah. I have a hard time believing that Mike Esposito is wrong on this one, because number one, I know he's a huge Doors fan. Number two, I know that he owns a ton of different copies of that record and has already done reviews on those previous records. And I think that his, equipment that I know that he reviews on, I think is probably a little bit better than what Michael 45 RPM is using. So in my opinion, I think he just has a better perspective on whether that is a good release or not. And I can't imagine that mono record ever sounding good. That's just my take.
This is a good segue, and I know I want to get to, Geoff, your article later on in the show, but I think
I appreciate that, but this is more interesting than my article.
Okay, well, we'll talk about it anyways, but it's some segue. Well, one of your articles, and you did mention it, was actually September 29th. It was the search for the perfect sound. Wonderfully written article. We all enjoyed it. That created a lot of buzz in the audiophile community, as we all know, because that was at the very, I guess, start of DSD MoFi gate, when all shit was, all hell was breaking loose, and we couldn't believe that he used a digital step DSD. And, Geoff came out and wrote about Tom Port and Better Records. And then after that, I contacted Tom Port and had a lovely interview with Tom. And I really enjoyed my chat with him. And he still emails me. He's a fan of the channel as well and watches it all the time. And so he had actually sent me a copy of Steely Dan's AJA, his Better Records version, which I think probably sells for $750 on his site. And he was eager for me to review it or compare it. But I mean, I was like, I didn't want to just do it just on my own, because I was worried that, okay, if someone thought I was, rigging it or whatever. So what I've done, I actually have 6 copies of AJA that I got my 19-year-old daughter, my 17-year-old daughter, and myself do a blind listen with my wife actually putting the vinyl down. And it was quite an event. We did side 1 Black Cat, we did side 2 Peg. So, I mean, I have the results if anyone wants to know, but we can talk about AJA first. I mean, I know Mazzy, that was one of your first records you would have known about when you started at ABC Records back in 1977, right? So it was?
Yes, 77.
Yeah. So the ones I have, I'm going to pull them out. Because
I want to know I don't want to talk about that record. I want to hear the results.
The results? Okay.
Yeah.
Whole ribbon panel of children.
So we
know the record. We know the record.
I won't pull I brought them all, but anyways, I'll name it. So my 19-year-old.
Tell us the copies and tell us the results, for Pete's
sake. Hang on. The copies. You guys got to be patient. Let me just say, 19-year-old, very, very musically inclined, plays piano, guitar, doing like hip hop and all that. My 17-year-old was in choir, plays piano, and then there's me, old guy. I know. Yeah.
The envelope, please.
All right, the envelope, please. So my 19-year-old, from all 6, we compared the MoFi, we compared my original AB 1006, we compared the Better Records version, which is the AB with the B crossed out, 1006. My Canadian red vinyl version, my Cisco version by Kevin Gray, and the Back in Black version I think you can get currently on Amazon. So those are the 6 we compared. And I told the girls, I said, listen for the bass, listen for clarity, listen for the vocals and instrument separation, the basics, right? And so my 19-year-old, this is how she ranked them. She liked the MoFi. That was her number 1 pick. The MoFi. And I said, well, why? She liked the smoothness of the vocals and the bass. That was her pick. My 17-year-old, her number 1 pick was the Cisco Kevin Gray cut. Loved the bass, loved the vocals, and she loved the overall sound of that album. Myself, this is where it gets interesting, because I know the album. This is all blind, guys. I had no idea what was being played. I like my AB 1006, which is the original one. And the reason why I liked it, my notes say it was basically the loudest and overall had the largest sound stage as well. And my 19-year-old also felt the same about the original, thought it was very loud. So I found that was very interesting. So 19-year-old likes the MoFi. My 17-year-old thought the Cisco was the best, and I thought the AB 1006 cut by Bernie Grundman was the best. Now, where do the Better Records ones fit in? So they're basically all the way through consistent. Tom Port's Better Records came in second for my 19-year-old. She felt it was the loudest out of all the cuts and had the
That
most
loudness
bass.
button. She likes the loudness button.
Well, maybe it's the age. My 17-year-old liked the Better Records number 3, liked the bass, liked the instrument separation, and didn't see much of a difference between the AB 1006, which is the original. Same, it's basically Bernie Grunman. It's the same tape. It's the same lacquer cut. And then I like the Better Records version number 2.
Oh. Well, on the bright side, at least your 17-year-old isn't going to be stealing your cash to buy a hot stamper, right?
No, we got the hot stamper, and the hot stamper, the one that I received, just so everyone knows, here it is here. And if you can see it, it was side 1's A++ and side 2 is A++. So this is
but isn't that virtually the same as your original?
It is virtually the same. Absolutely. So if you look at the results, they're basically
except cleaning shit on it. Or
there's different cleaning stuff. And I will say I used the Humming Guru and cleaned all of them the same as well. But here's the thing. So the Better Records in my original, for the 19-year-old came in 2, 3. For my 17-year-old, Better Records came in 3rd. And for myself, the Better Records came in 2nd. So the AB, the original one, both the Tom Port version and the original one, are much higher on most of these, other than my 19-year-old, which of course like the MoFi for whatever reason. She just liked the smoothness of it. I had MoFi ranked number 6 out of 6.
A Smiley EQ of the MoFi.
Yeah.
So you just left them at whatever volume they naturally were at?
I turned them around a little bit. We played around with it a little bit as well, just to see. So yeah, no, I didn't just leave it. Okay.
I was just curious because I know anytime I'm doing a shootout with any mobile fidelity, I have to usually crank it up several notches to level match. So I use my dB meter to level match, on titles, because our perception of loudness tends to, weigh heavily into our, thoughts on what sounds better in most cases.
When, like Tim was mentioning, right?
You keep your dB meter next to your waffle iron in the closet.
Yes.
My guess is Mr. Edgers and I don't have dB meters.
No, I don't.
I don't either.
I bought one of those. The closest I can come to that, and I can't really come that close. I bought one of those things to keep a track of my cartridge, usage, and it's angering me at this point because I never.
An app?
No, it's like a little thing I put next to the turntable, but I never remember to turn it on or off. So I either have it on for 3 days or never run it. So it's like
I need one of those. It's kind of a black hole. It's kind of a black hole. You're always worried about it, Yeah.
Yeah. So the problem with these, the problem, and it's not a problem, but it's like I feel deficient to do shootouts properly because my equipment isn't good enough. And so I feel like I can take big swipes at it. But I mean, technically a proper shootout, you need a lot of records. You need to really have the right circumstances and you need the equipment, and I don't have that. So I do feel fortunate that I can definitely take the biggest, I can make the biggest decisions that need to be made to get closer than I was before.
So what I'll say from my blind shootout with my kids is that I believe that the original is the best one that's out there of all of them. Original AJA, cut by
Was
Bernie
there
Grunman.
one that everyone just disliked completely?
Yeah, Back in Black was basically number six, last for the teenagers, and it was second last for me. I hated the MoFi the most.
Are you going to do this again when the one step comes out?
I don't know, but I mean, right now
or UHQR, excuse me.
Yeah, it's the only one I ordered. So if anyone's looking for Asia, and I think Geoff mentioned there's a lot of Steely Dan out there, the AB 1006, the original, is the one to get. If you can get a really clean copy, sounds great. It's loud, great bass, great separation. I quite enjoyed it. And that's the one that Tom Port gave me. And his was an A, B with the B crossed out 1006 in mint condition.
I also will say, just about listening to that, I spent a lot, I went to Tom Port's place twice, and I spent a lot of time in that room listening to records. And I believe that's a legitimate thing. The thing that but what I also think is that it's really a question of how much time you want to spend. And also there are certain records that are really hard to figure out. I don't want to give away Tom Port's secrets, so it's I'm not going to, but there's certain records that when I started looking and listening with him and listening to the things in there, I was surprised at what record would be the best sounding. I don't think the Steely Dan is one of those cases. I don't think it takes a brain surgeon to figure out I'm not dismissing you, Steve. I know you are qualified as a brain surgeon, but I'm saying like
that's my full.
Us,
just so everyone knows, that's my full-time job.
Most of us
Westman.
have kind of figured that out. You know,
yep.
Every once in a while, there's a curveball, and you don't know what it is, and it does. You know, if you care about it that much, it does serve you to have somebody out there in the universe that spent like all this time listening to 50 or 100 of these records for whatever reason.
And I have no problem with his business model. If you don't like the fucking thing, take it back. He'll give you your full money back.
Right.
I get it.
Yep.
I have no problem with it. So Asia original, and it was Bernie Grunman's. I asked Bernie when I interviewed him, I said, what's some of your favorite albums? He goes, Michael Jackson, Thriller, and Steely Dan's Asia. So that was his two favorite he's ever done. And which is interesting because he is the one that remastered Asia this time around for Chad. So I would assume he still probably had his original mastering notes. So I bet you it's going to be close to the original.
Boy, if I never talk about those two records again for the rest of my life, I'll be fine.
Well, just wait when Asia comes out, all the posts and the Steve Hoffman forums and everything we're going to hear about Asia. It's going to be just nauseating at some point.
Guys, do you I'm curious because I was doing a story in Pittsburgh and I went to this record store, Jerry's Records. I'd never been there. I guess it's famous, but it was like
that's my backyard.
What is it?
I said that's like in my backyard. Jerry's
Have
Records.
You been there, Nathan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like a gold mine. I couldn't believe it. I was so happy there. I could have stayed there forever, but I had only a carry-on bag, and then I was going to like Washington the next day, so I just bought as much as I could cram in there. But I'm curious what you guys think when you look at records that are overpriced or underpriced. I mean, like, for example, I believe McCoy Tyner is a great example in jazz, underpriced, and Jerry's Records, I went there, they had, I'm sorry, it's going to start a run on them, but like when I look at those contemporary records from the 50s, it sounds so damn good.
Yeah.
So like Shelly Manne or Andre Previn, they just had record after record after record. It was in mint condition. They were $8. And I went into the stacks and they had like 20 more copies of those. I mean, if I could have bought 100 of them and just given them all to my friends, I would have. What do you guys find is still actually reasonable in this insane market we live in?
Yeah.
Well, let me bring up what we talked about. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, Jerry does not use internet pricing. That's why his prices are so low. He's not tech savvy at all. In fact, for the longest time, you couldn't even pay there unless you had cash. And I don't know if that's changed now.
You can't. No, there's a cash. I had to go to the cash machine in the hallway.
Yep.
And take out the cash when I figured out what I wanted.
You know what that is? That's not being tech savvy. That's being actually smart. Avoid the tax man. Cash. That's what that is.
Yeah.
What I was going to say when we talked about at the very beginning, I do want to mention just briefly. Kraft is starting the OJC series of records that they came out from 82 to 91. Almost all of them are all analog, with some exceptions later on. They were budget releases that were $598, $698. That was the list price in the 80s when new releases were $898 and $998.
Here you go, Tim.
And they're going to come out with, this is one of two they're putting out initially. They're selling them for $40, which seems to me a little high. But what they're doing is they're bringing it back into the label like Tone Poet and Classics with Blue Note under the Kraft umbrella. And they're only doing like 2 to begin with. I think there's 20 on. But you can still sort of get these, like half the time they're in shrink still. However, what I mentioned on this video I just posted today, a month ago, I had 340 of these, which I sold on behalf of an elderly gentleman that trusted me to sell them. And they sold anywhere between, depending on the title, $15 and $50 each. Some are rare, very rare, and some are not. Obviously, there's the Coltrane stuff. So, run out before these start coming out and go for these OJCs, because almost all of them are all analog. I'm sure these go for more, actually, the Bill Evans stuff. But even things like Cal Jader, like people aren't into Latin style vibes out of San Francisco, but I friggin' love this stuff, with Vince Guaraldi, that stuff. But it's an amazing catalog with Thelonious Monk and stuff. That's a sweet price of records. And I find usually they're in pristine shape because that's the time they were coming out when people were going to CDs. So they'd buy them and they wouldn't play them very often.
How can those records sound? How can they sound? I'm very curious. I'd just love to understand. I'm wondering what's the point is what I'd ask, because I'd say that those records from the 80s sound perfect. They're impeccable. They're great,
Well,
right? So what is the purpose of this? I'm wondering. I don't know.
What's the purpose
market
of
is there.
reissuing them?
This is the total tone poet model. They've been watching what Blue Note has done, and the market is there. I mean, it's the tone poet model, especially at that price point. If they were going to be budget, they'd be $19.
Yeah.
But Geoff, that's my answer to your question.
And
whenever I'm out digging, I check these titles. If they're OJC, I pick them up, and they've been between, even this title, this is a classic, $21, but they're usually between 15 and 20. This was sealed when I got it.
But aren't the Blue Notes, isn't the big difference? The Blue Note, again, tell me if I'm wrong, but the difference here is that the OJCs are everywhere and they produce so much. And there's a hole in the Blue Note catalog where they had great early records that are $1 billion. And then you have kind of spottiness as you go through and you just got to find them, right?
Well, they're not everywhere. I mean, some of them are everywhere. The Cal Jaders of Inscaraldis, but a lot of the Bill Evans, a lot of the Monk stuff, they're harder to get now. And also think about this. I mean, the bottom line, the answer to your question, Mr. Edgers, is that Kraft doesn't make a dime on used records, so they need to put them out. They need to put content out. You know,
I was about to say that we're celebrating Pink Floyd's 50th anniversary. What was that song on the second side called? Money. That's what it's all about. Why is Pink Floyd doing a 50th anniversary box? It's all about money. Why are the Beatles going to be doing all their other remixes? It's money, 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 baby. That's all.
For the last decade or so, Chad put out this Prestige series, you know, and these were $35 lately, $40. They're fantastic. I'm sure he lost the license. He won't be able to press them again because Kraft is finally going to take them in house. That's why I'm concerned that Kraft's going to sell them at $40. When a licensee sells them for 40, it seems Kraft could sell them for 30, maybe 35 tops, because they don't have to pay that license. And like I think the classic series.
And I think Kevin Gray has done some Kraft in the past. I'm not sure if he's involved with the most recent ones, but that would be interesting.
And he's doing the OJCs apparently.
Yeah. He's attached. Yeah.
There you go. And I am having Kevin Gray on in the next couple of weeks, March 17th. So stay tuned for that. That'll be a fun one.
Cool.
Those are such great records, Mazzy, those Monk records.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
So, Geoff, Mr. Edgers.
Yeah.
Let's talk February 10th. Something was posted about Burt Bacharach that you wrote. He passed away.
Yeah, I'll tell you the story really quickly if I can, because it's kind of sad to me. So I was scheduled a couple of years ago during the pandemic. The Washington Post had me, I did an Instagram live show, and what was cool about it is that like it was on our channel, so we had like millions of people, but no one was supervising me. So I would do an hour-long conversation every Friday because I was stuck in this barn. And so one of them I did was Burt Bacharach, because I just wanted to have him on. So I called, you could still find it. I called up his son's like young, like 30 or 40, I don't know. And I just was like, hey, does Burt do like Instagram? And he's like, no. I was like, well, can he? And he's like, well, he gets up a little late, but after he has breakfast. So if you look, it's amazing. He just popped up in my thing and he was at the piano. And I started talking to him. He was great to talk to. He's 92 then. And I would say, like, tell me about like Walk On By. And he'd be like, well, first I had this thing. You know, he did the whole thing. So I was all set because I love the record that he did with Elvis Costello, Painted from Memory. And
love that album.
There you go. I don't have that copy.
You got to get that copy. It's incredible. It's on super vinyl.
I was just going to say.
Okay, I got this thing, and it's not out.
That comes out Friday.
So Geoff, hang on. We talk about this a lot. Obviously, that's a promo. Or did you get that promo? Or did you buy that?
I did not buy this because I'll tell you why. And first of all, I don't know why we talk about this a lot. To be honest, I mean, I spend a lot of money on records. We
all do.
But here's the thing. I'm writing a story on, so I decided it would be cool. A few years ago, I love Flowers in the Dirt. That's like, Paul McCartney came back on that record. So a few years ago, I was lucky enough to manipulate Paul McCartney and Elvis Costello into doing interviews with me about that record. And I did a story on it. So in this case, I just thought, well, there's a natural idea. So I organized talking to Elvis Costello and Burt Bacharach for this. And I talked to Elvis a couple weeks ago, maybe. And then I was set to talk to Burt. And on Thursday of that week, I was supposed to talk to him the week after. I don't work in Washington, but I was in the Washington Post newsroom, and the pop culture editor said, "Oh, do you like Burt Bacharach?" And I was like, "Oh yeah. I mean, I'm interviewing him next week." And he said, "Well, he died." And so then I wrote that tribute, and it just changed what I did. I ended up, I basically turned it into a Q&A with Elvis Costello because he was wonderful to talk to, and that'll come out on Friday. But as part of that, so this is a box set that's coming out, the songs of Bacharach and Costello. It's really interesting because it has Painted from Memory, but also they were commissioned to do a musical that never came together. So they have a slew of other songs that they did. Elvis also put on a series of live tracks, a lot of them done with Steve Naive, his pianist, in '99, of songs from Painted from Memory. And then Elvis has some versions of Burt Bacharach songs that he sang. And he's very like, he's like, "My Little Red Book is like Manfred Mann. It's not like the one from Love is cool, but they redid, like they changed the arrangement, and that's not what Burt wrote." So
he hated that version. Burt Bacharach hated the Love version. Yeah.
So when you talk about promos, it's like, a month ago I had this digitally because I can't wait till March 3rd to go buy it on Amazon or something, because I'm going to be talking to Elvis Costello, and then they send this to me. And I mean, honestly, I don't really get into this stuff because it seems silly to me, but the idea that I would write something or not write something based on having a record is a little silly to me, and so that's what's coming out. That's what's coming out on Friday, and it's kind of amazing. In that article that you held up, Daniel Tashin, who was working with Burt very, very late, in his life, he sent me a video of Burt and him in the living room. Was like from maybe a year ago, and it was just Burt was at the piano banging around, and Daniel was singing the song. I just, it's really sad that Burt's gone, obviously, and he's 94, but it's clear that guy was active until like basically the end. I mean, he was slowed down maybe, but he was active and doing stuff.
Were you going to do the interview in person? Were you going to fly out there or was it going to be a remote thing?
No, it was going to be a Zoom.
Okay.
I did like in your article, Geoff, you did mention about how, I'll even read the second paragraph of your article. It says, is why you're urging us to listen to some of his lesser known songs. It's a B-side called Walk Little Dolly. Within seconds, you say here, you'll understand just how little easy listening is going on. So I took your advice. I listened to that song. It was sung by Dionne Warwick. And yeah, wow, there's a lot going on in that song. And it's, I had never heard it before. It was a lovely, lovely song.
Dionne Warwick, that's a good example, because I didn't have that. I had that record and it was a little scratchy. So I was like, I need a better version. So I went on and I bought it. Again, Dionne Warwick is so undervalued. Like, you buy all those records, they're cheap and they sound excellent. So I would say, like, when we talk about new records or old records, here's a perfect example. This is a record that I'm going to buy anytime it comes out, because it doesn't exist in earlier form. I mean, Painted from Memory does. Look at that. I like that picture. Painted from Memory exists, but this actual product with the material that's on it does not exist. So I'm not going to have a shootout with it, whatever. But I love Elvis Costello, so I'm going to consume whatever he puts out. And I don't know how much this costs, but it ain't $500,
So my favorite version of Walk On By, Dionne was fantastic, but if you want serious bravado, a 12-minute version from Isaac Hayes. And I don't want to steal Mazzy put out a separate video kind of in honor of Burt's work, but I think you probably showed this too, but this thing is just amazing.
Yeah, we did that conversation with John in the UK from Birmingham, who's a huge fan and knows more about R&B than anybody I know, and really covered that. I did show this. I mean, if people are CD people, this is a 3 CD set that came out from Rhino probably 20 years ago.
Great. It's great.
It's fantastic. Yeah, it's a great introduction. You're surprised about some of the things.
It's probably it's probably a good value too. You probably pick it up for not a bad.
Well, I don't know.
Deal.
There's
Who
CDs
knows?
that are up in price now. Box
Oh, I know.
that are at a,
Well, I
don't know.
do, Jeff. I do. I love how Costello in that essay that in your box there, he describes Bacharach's work as intimate, elegant, passionate, and erotic.
Yes.
Wow.
Erotic or neurotic?
Erotic.
I gotta say, I
Oh.
mean, if you read Elvis Costello's, I mean, I was editing down the Q&A and it was like 5,000 words, and my editor and I were like, can't do this, because the problem is Elvis Costello is so good at telling stories. You know, he had this whole long talk about the BBC and how there's a fantastic picture in here. It's like a Zelig moment where it's from 1963, and it's from the concert that that the Beatles did, the charity concert, and it's the one with John Lennon. Is like, you can rattle your jewelry up there, you know, the famous one. But what's fascinating about it is there's a picture, and in the picture is Burt Bacharach. I don't know why I'm representing him by a hand, but I'm going to. And then you walk 3 people down the picture, and it's Elvis Costello's father, Ross McManus. And it's because Ross McManus, some of us know, was the singer for the Joe Loss Band, which was a famous and accomplished BBC band. And if you look, If I Had a Hammer, look up If I Had a Hammer and Elvis Costello, father, or Ross McManus, and you'll see him performing there. And it's fascinating because he looks just like Elvis. And he does this funny little dance. It's almost like out of High Fidelity. But Burt was Marlene Dietrich's pianist. And the other piece of that I love is that if you read Elvis's autobiography, at that concert, he had heard the Beatles were going to be there, and he told his dad, he was only 9 years old, he said, you know, get their autographs. And he brought the autographs back on a napkin or something, or a piece of paper, and Elvis cut them up, separated them, and pasted them into a book, which he still has. So there's a huge essay in here that Elvis wrote. I mean, it's not like a little forward or something. It's an essay. And, you know, that kind of stuff just makes this sort of thing so much more valuable to all of us. I mean, I think it becomes more important than just like, hey, here's a record that we remixed and that's on, you know, nice vinyl. It's a thing. So I hate to be, I don't want to sound like an ad, but I just love Elvis Costello so much that, I mean, I love that Flowers in the Dirt box, all those demos with Paul that I had to listen to in crappy versions on Napster, you know? It was so nice to get them for real.
Yeah.
Well, that Elvis, there's a 2 LP version that coming out Friday with the main record and some of the extra tracks. And that box, I guess the box has CDs and other things in it, right?
Yeah, there are 4 CDs right here.
Right.
Yeah, so
And there's there's an abbreviated 2 vinyl version for those of you who just don't have this on MoFi and want this with a few extra tracks.
I wonder how
Mazzy,
that record sounds compared to this one.
Shootout, yeah, you know, I'm going to probably get the CD box on that because I like all the other stuff. I don't need another vinyl version of it. And unlike some of these other guys, I rarely do shootouts, but occasionally.
Yeah. So
Mazzy,
guys,
hold up that box set.
What is it?
Friday?
Mazzy, hold up that box set that you had, the Burt box set. Mazzy, you had the white box set, the CD box set.
That's this.
That was Jeff that had a box set.
Isn't that too thick to hold 3 CDs? You didn't throw that away?
This is the old type of, you know, that.
You complain about the UHQR boxes, and then there you are with that thing.
You know what?
We got this one. This one has. We got 4 in this sucker, right? I mean, they really knew how to do it back in those days. Unfortunately, I lost. If anyone has disc 3, could you mail it to me?
Care of the Washington Post.
Nathan, damn you, Nathan! I'm going to quote Chad. I have that T-shirt with Chad when he called me out, so I'm not going to go there. But the problem I have with the box sets is, you know, 1 record in a box. If this was 1 CD in a box, I know you're teasing me because I set myself up. It's the 1 album in a box. You can fit 3 albums in a UHQR box. I know you're.
Well, final moments here, guys. Tim, what are you listening to tonight? Tell the viewers what you're going to be spinning.
I've got 2 things I've been listening to. Local record shop bought a collection, and this guy was a classic records fiend, apparently. Don't know why he sold his collection, but Norah Jones' 3rd album, kind of underrated. This is the one where she kind of started composing things on acoustic guitar. And Not Too Late is the album. It's a 200-gram classic. And then I picked this up several months ago. This is Fagen's Morph the Cat 2006 album. Fantastic. One of the best sounding, I don't know if you want to call this a standard release, but it's amazing. So that's what I've been doing.
Nathan, by the way, I'm not going to be spinning Asia tonight or Dark Side of the Moon. I'll just tell you guys that straight up. Not happening.
That's good.
Probably the Jazz Impressions Black Orpheus that came out last week that I also posted and raved about, because that's an exceptional release. The Craft One Step.
And Mazzy, I know you're always spinning something. What's on today?
I think I'm in a jazz mode doing some of these OJCs, because out of that collection I kept about 20 myself, give or take. And I've been rereading this book that came out in the late 50s. I've had this copy about 15 years. And if anyone likes jazz, Studs Terkel, Giants of Jazz, is a really good read. Essays on different jazz artists going back, like Louis Armstrong, Dizzy Gillespie, Vic Spider, Beck, Billie Holiday, Duke Ellington. So it's the early jazz that the hipsters and these blue note people aren't into, that really bebop and stuff, and it's a fantastic book. And you can just pick up, read an essay and move on.
And I bet you, Mr. Edgers, you're going to be doing Elvis Costello tonight. That's my guess. You're going to listen to that box.
Wrong.
Really?
When you finish a story, you like, I've been listening to that thing for a long time. It's like when you're doing a story on someone and you're watching all their movies, the last thing you want to do is put on another one. So no, I'm kind of interested, because I got so the Jeff Beck, it took so long to get this one from the UK that I stupidly ordered this one from 1969 from Japan that's red. So I'm going to listen to those. And then I've been listening to this crazy, I don't know if anyone else had it. Oh my God, I got tape on it. I got this box set. You've listened to this one? These guys are awesome, I think. This is the Zam.
I have that.
Does anyone listen to that?
I have the red covered version. I think mine's a second press of that, maybe. Yeah,
I love it when there are certain people that I know and I'm familiar with, but I love it when somebody like who I trust curates something that I don't know at all, and that's like in that category.
Is it a VMP release, right?
It is, yeah.
Yep.
It's great.
Well, gentlemen, thank you. I have to get back to surgery. This is just my lunch hour right now. So thank you, Geoff, for joining our roundtable. You're welcome back anytime. It was a blast. Guys, we'll see you again next time. And keep spinning. Enjoy your evening tonight.
Thanks, guys.